Hello, everybody, and welcome. How is everybody doing? I have an incredible guest I'm so happy to have today, Ivan Mikolji, who obviously I've been singing the praises of for the last few weeks about this incredible book that he's put together. And in the description, I've got links to all his contact info, as far as his websites, his artwork, his social media, and also a link to the book. If you'd like to buy that, we've got a deal for you. And if you sign up for his newsletter, you can get all the great info of what he's been up to, as well as the first 50 pages, which is pretty generous. That's really cool of you to do. First 50 pages of the book, digitally, in full resolution, basically. So yeah. Well, hello. How are you doing today?
Thank you for having me here. I've been waiting all day for this.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm excited to have you on, definitely. I mean, there's just so many questions I've had while I've read through your book. I've literally read through like the info in the book twice, but then I flipped through it probably 10 times since I got it. It's been, I've actually used it during a couple live streams when people were telling me, if there's any sort of fluffy fungus or mold in your aquarium, get it out right away. And I'm like, well, if you have a biotope aquarium and it naturally formed over the course of months, I mean, hold on. And then, I show them the book and I'm like, look at what the pistos live in naturally.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's been, I think your book is just so revealing, and the work you do in general is so revealing in what do our fish really live in. It's not, a pristine or pink gravel, with a little scuba diver and castle. I mean, that's all fine and well, but that is not the reality of where our fish come from. So
Exactly.
um,
That's right.
so what got you into loving fish from the start? I mean, was this like a thing that you were obsessed with as a child, or?
Well, I'm I was obsessed as a child about rivers. That's what I can
Okay.
tell you. But my father had a lot of influence because we always had an aquarium at home.
Oh, okay.
He was Croatian, and we there since I can remember there was always an aquarium. But going when I went to school, when I went anywhere, I always was looking to see if I saw a river. And if I saw a river, I memorized where it was. So every time we would pass by, I know where they were. Wherever we went, I know, okay, there's a river coming, and I would look out the window. So that's something that since very little I've had it. So yeah, it's like a calling. The rivers are calling.
It's really interesting that you say that, because since I was a little kid, I have something similar. But for me, what it is it's not necessarily a river, but what it is being able to see into the water from above and seeing like a fish swimming. Like that for me is like my idea of heaven. Like, doesn't matter if it's tropical or we're ice fishing or whatever, it for some reason, since I was a little teeny kid, it was that almost looking into this other world, that's underwater and so different from our day-to-day life. I don't know.
It's
But I
basic
always called to me.
basic curiosity, basic
Yeah,
curiosity, right?
yeah,
But
exactly.
I was drawn to rivers even if they were clear or not. But clear that made a whole realm, because you want to know what is there, and it's all about exploring, right? It's the same with you. It's a
Yeah,
curiosity of what is there.
yeah, totally. So did you grow up in Venezuela, or what brought you to Venezuela? Or
No, my father was Croatian. He came, like many immigrants, out of World War II, and my mother
okay,
was from Nicaragua, from Central America, and they both
wow,
wound up in Venezuela, and they met in Caracas. So
okay,
I've lived all my life there.
wow,
There's two towns from Valencia, Venezuela, and Caracas. I was born in Caracas, and we moved back and forth. And the first thing when we moved, we had a house in each city, and every time we moved, the first thing in the truck was my aquarium. You
yeah,
know, and
yeah,
at the beginning, I would take everything out and then put the stuff in buckets. But after we moved so much, I would just leave 3 fingers of water in there, and I managed to move it and bring it in the car, and they put some wrap around it, on the cover.
That's funny because my wife and I just bought our first house, and I had 18 aquariums to move. And so I went through like the madness of, and I didn't want to disturb the substrate. That was the thing, is some of my tanks are like 6 years old. Yeah. And so I was like, at 6 years, a 6-year-old substrate, you've got a lot of bacteria and stuff in there. So I wanted to at least keep maybe 5-10% water in some of the tanks. And it was in the middle of January, the middle of our winter. So yeah, I had some fun navigating that. So needless to say, I probably won't be moving with aquariums full of water again, but that's quite the dedication to bring it back and forth with you.
Yeah, that's what aquarium people do. That's what we do.
Yeah. So growing up in Venezuela, did you have a sense that I live in the place where pet fish or tropical fish come from?
Not at all.
Okay, because in America we've got that view that like those are the fish from over there. Those are the tropical fish. Those are the fancy fish, right? And we ignore our native fish for the most part. I mean, people fish recreationally and things like that, but other than some people like NANFA and North American Native Fish Association and things, we think of our fish as boring or ugly, right? So was there any element of that in Venezuela? I mean, did you think of any of your fish ever as just kind of like, oh, those are the ones from Venezuela, I want the African ones, or
This could be answered in so many ways, but there's I think, after so much going around, it is a lack of information. You see, even until 15 years ago, I thought all fish came from the Amazon. It's all from the Amazon. It's in the Amazon, and everything you read about was Brazil, because they didn't talk to you about the Amazon in Ecuador or Peru.
No,
it was Brazil. It was the Amazon River. So nobody spoke about the Orinoco, and I think they still don't.
No,
they don't. Everybody is save the Amazon, but probably 1/5 of it or something is 1/4 is the Orinoco River basin. And so it was a misinformation, including today's. A lot of people. I have a website, a very old website called Aquatic Experts, which was one of the first websites I made.
I was reading that today just before doing the interview, so I found some of your old stuff on there.
I haven't touched it. I worked really hard on it when I started, and I went I don't know. I worked probably like 4 or 5 years on it. It has like 3,000 pages in it.
Yeah, the fish that are on there, you've got great stories about like how you found them and photographed them.
Yeah, but it's sometimes it's old information because I haven't updated it probably in 10 years or more. Okay, so there's a lot of old names and things that I thought were this, because there was no atlas for the Venezuelan fish. Everything people sold was from the Amazon, so that's what was known.
Right.
So there's a lot of of names that are not the things that really are. But anyways, it was the first attempt. So, but there's still a misinformation. And when people go in there, which are from Venezuela, and they see these strange plecos, like the L200s or the L128, or those, how do you call this? The galactic one. How do you call it? Loricanthicus. No. Oh, geez.
Lorcardae.
No, it's L240, I think it is. It's black with the white dots all over the place. And they're is that from Venezuela? Is that Leporcanthus galacticus? I think it is.
Oh, yeah,
Is that from Venezuela? That cannot be. They can't be from here. People don't believe that we have Cardinal Tetras. They don't know.
Really?
Wow. Yeah, that they are in Venezuela or Colombia. Because you don't speak about the Amazon as Colombia either. So when you get all this Orinoco River basin that is such a big, such a big piece of land and important part in the, of biological speaking, then it's more of a misinformation. But when I was a kid, you used to go to the store, and I remember the first thing when I got in the store that my dad used to take me in Caracas, there was this huge aquarium, huge, and it was full of wild discus.
Oh, cool.
Big,
That's
big,
really cool.
wild discus.
Like dinner plate ones.
Yeah, like dinner
Yeah.
plate ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
brown. And I always told my dad, I want one of those. And he would always tell me those are too expensive, because they were really expensive back then to bring them. And in the beginning, in the late 70s, they were really expensive. So we never got one. So when I got my aquarium, imagine what I wanted to get. My own aquarium. I wanted to get discus because I never, but I didn't know how they were really cool in the hobby or anything about the hobby when I was a kid. I just saw them and they were magnificent, as discus are. Discus are magnificent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
and
I mean,
most of the fish in the store were imported. They weren't Venezuelan.
Interesting. So there wasn't really a market then when you were growing up for any sort of. Is there a market? There still isn't. Really? Okay.
There still isn't. Now, right now, there's probably such a problems to import things there that you're starting to get all that stuff that is in the rivers, but not before. Not when you can import them freely.
I was curious if when IBAMA out of Brazil, they put the regulations in saying you couldn't export plecos and fish like that. I was curious because I've read, and this is really interesting because you say that there's not much of a fish export business in Venezuela. I've been in the States and had things that have been transshipped through LA, and they've said from Venezuela or from Colombia, and they're species that I'm pretty sure live in Brazil. But I was curious, are they actually cutting through the Venezuelan waterways, or is it a full lie and they're just, marking it as that to get it up here,
Well, there's Colombia has had a very, a tradition too of exporting fish through Irinita and Puerto Carreño.
Yeah,
and
beautiful fish.
What they do is, because our border is the Orinoco, and the Orinoco is where we're with Colombia, the fishermen pass, because the fishermen go in the river and they just cross the river and they're in Venezuela. So they go up the Ventuari, they go up the Atabapo, and they go to all these indigenous tribes, and the indigenous people, collect it for them, and they get them, and then they go back to Colombia and they get exported through Colombia. So when you get all these L-128s from Venezuela, the Phantom Plicos and all of this.
Yeah, I've got the blue Phantoms.
Yeah, the blue Phantoms, they come from Venezuela, and but they're flown out through Colombia.
Okay. So that's what I was wondering too, is, I get a lot of fish that are marked, and it's just because of my personal interest, but Rio Negro, and, or Orinoco. And so I was curious, how are they coming out? Because the other thing was, I wasn't even sure. I mean, for people around the world, they may not know the relationship between the U.S. and Venezuela, but there's better relationships known around the world as far as trade goes and things like that. But also at the same time, it's not as bad as it's made out to be in some ways. You know what I mean? So I was just curious.
Now, but before it was really good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm just curious. I mean, have you seen that change is it kind of changing with the wind? Like what's allowed to come and go, if you're allowed, what passports you need, what, that kind of thing? Or is it pretty easy for you to go back and forth?
Well, it's easier for me to come to the U.S. than get now to the Orinoco River in Venezuela.
Okay.
Let's put it that way, because right now there's like a gas crisis down there.
Yeah.
So it's easier for me to come here. It's easier for me to fly to Colombia and do my work now in the Colombian part, or in the Colombian Orinoco, than it is from Venezuela. So, but there's hopefully will all pass really quickly, and it's all, it's the fish don't know where you are. You know, they from where you're from or where you're going. And
Yeah.
you know that there's a good story about this. You know, I most of the work I do is on the Venezuelan side, let's say,
Hmm.
right, of the Orinoco, and I do some work in Colombia too. But most of the thing is that Venezuela has a lot of roads because we were so wealthy in the
Yeah.
70s and
The,
80s and
the
90s
oil.
with the oil and everything. So
Yeah.
there's roads everywhere. And the gas was for free practically. So
Right.
I could do
Yeah.
all this work for years, you know, pretty cheaply, right?
Yeah.
And with my time, I would spend time, you know, car and insurance and, you know, oil changes, whatever, but the gas was free.
Yeah.
So I would go to the Venezuelan border with the Colombia in the tourist rapids where the blue phantom plecos come from. And
Okay.
for 15 years, I photographed the tourist rapids, which are one of the most incredible places on earth.
Yeah.
And until a short while ago, I realized I was photographing Colombia
Oh,
because I'm
really?
on
The
the
border.
Venezuelan side,
Oh,
taking a picture of the river. So
right.
everything I have on my pictures is Colombia. I don't even have Venezuela. So you know, there's when you're walking there, you don't know where you are. There's, you know,
Yeah,
there's
I
just,
mean, especially when the wet season can change things 20
yeah,
feet or whatever. It's like,
yeah,
where's the borderline? Who knows?
yes,
Uh,
yeah.
and so growing up, I mean, did you spend time on the Orinoco at all? Was
No,
there, so you didn't grow up, with any attachment to the river as far as
no,
like culturally or anything?
not to Orinoco. I had attachment a lot to the ocean. I've spent
Okay,
more time in the ocean and photographing. Probably, I have a lot. Well, not as much photography as right now in the rivers, but I have a large. I spend a lot of time of my life in the ocean, more than in the rivers.
interesting.
So, and until 15 years ago is when I started just going more to rivers. But as a kid, I would do some rivers that were near my house where we lived. But
Sure.
that's like the Lake of Valencia basin. So it was a lot
Okay.
of guppies and
Yeah.
diamond tetras that are from there, or some cichlids that are from there, like the blue acra, the poulture, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the Macara poulture, and you know, those were the fish that you know I would see in the rivers. A lot of guppies everywhere,
That's
in all the
so cool.
sewers, you know, and everywhere
Yeah.
you went,
Yeah.
there was guppies.
Now, were you seeing like ornamental guppies that had kind of gotten back into the wild, or were they completely like wild,
Completely
strains?
wild and wild strains, and not even the cool wild strains. The ones from the city folk guppies are just really, you
They
know,
look like game.
they have a couple of dots and a little line or orange and yellow, but you
Yeah.
can see it like the ones in the book.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what is there,
Well,
you
I
know.
still think those are cool. We have really lame guppies in America, which are the gambusia, the mosquito fish. I mean, they look like female guppies. The males look like female guppies. The markings. They're just little silver fish. Sometimes they have stripe or two, but so to me, any colorful fish I love. Like just it's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So I was just kind of curious. The other thing is I've heard so many different things from people, and very few from people who've actually been to Venezuela. But saying guppies are extinct in the wild, or endlers are extinct, or this or that. So what's your take on any of that commentary that I keep hearing? Or why, where's that
They're
coming from?
they're probably gonna be extinct,
Okay.
but there's still some. There's still some, but they're very threatened. And
Okay.
if you drive from where I live 2 hours, you get to Caracas, and then you drive 5 or 6 hours, and you get to Cumaná, where the endless are, where Laguna de
Yeah.
los Patos is, and you know, and
You're
they're
in Valencia?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
like 7 hours west.
Okay.
So if you drive 7 hours east, you get there to Cumana, and the antlers are there, and there's so many. How do you call these? Sorry, I'm English second language.
No, it's
There's
you could
where the
barely
water
tell
comes
that.
out. The water comes out of the earth.
Springs,
Springs,
aquifers.
springs.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's springs.
Whoa,
There's so
sorry,
many.
knocked my
Don't worry,
camera over.
don't worry. So there's many springs, and we lost you. Well, I keep on going. There's a lot of springs, and each of these springs has different types of guppies. So you can go in 20 streams and 20 of these springs, and each one has a different type of like endler.
Oh wow. Okay.
Now the original endler from the Laguna de los Patos, the Duck Lagoon,
Yeah.
they're being really threatened because they threw tilapia in there. So there's a lot of tilapia, and they have built settlements around it, and the sewers go in there. It's a mess in there, but the guppies go through the sewers and they go to the city. So if you go, for example, to the farmers market,
Yeah.
and there's a little piece of the water drains through the edge of the sidewalk.
Sure. Yeah.
There's endlers there. They're
Yeah.
getting adapted, but how long will they tolerate all of this and the tilapia and everything?
Yeah.
Some types of endlers, because as I tell you, each one there's some that only have an orange stripe in them. Another
Right.
they have there's so we probably already lost a lot of strains.
Gotcha.
Guppies there.
So I mean, to me, this seems like such an opportunity. Americans, Germans, Japanese would pay good money to get these strains. You know what I mean? To know that they have a strain from Venezuela that is, even if it's the gutter strain, because I mean, you see people are into keeping goodyids, or they're into keeping.
But those from Cumana are really cool compared to the ones in the gutter of Caracas or Valencia.
Okay,
right?
okay,
those are really cool guppies.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like the famous lagoon, right? The kind of like where they're from, really, right? Yeah. So that's I was just curious if I mean, do you think that there's an opportunity to exploit some of these fisheries in Venezuela without harming, the population?
If we have problems with exporting right now, and all of this, but if things change politically or whatever, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Why not? But I have a cool story about this. I was once with Oliver Lucanis.
Okay.
And George Fear, and we went on a trip, and we got to one of these springs where these guppies are, near Cumana, and it's there's a lot of hot springs. So there's guppies there's some places where there's not guppies because the water comes out too hot.
Sure.
But then as the spring progresses, there's more guppies. But we got in to the place where there's a lot of them, where the water wasn't that hot, and we put a little aquarium to take a picture of them. One of these little aquariums. So we take the water and place it, on the grass or whatever. Yeah. And we'd get the guppies with a net and we put them in. And after, you'd get the camera, and after 5 seconds, the guppy would turn over and die. The guppies would turn over and die. And, we're like, oh my God, what is going on? Because it can't be, the water's like, it can't be that shock. So we'd get the guppies inside the water, put them in a jar, put them in the water, and they flip around and die. So, but there was no temperature change, and I don't think bacteria can grow that fast.
No, it happens to sticklebacks too. So I'm really curious where this is going.
So it was really hard to take a picture of them. I don't even think we could, because after the third or fourth trying different ways, we gave up. We said, we're not going to kill them more.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how you can export something like that. It's going to be really difficult.
Yeah. So did you ever figure out what was going on with that?
Well, no, but for example, in my book, there's the orange line guppy.
Yeah.
That we're now doing tests to see if what, GNA and stuff.
Yeah.
But those are pretty similar, and you have to grab them underwater and put them in a jar or something, and then bring them out gently. But those are not as bad as the ones we saw there. So there's, as I tell you, every stream has a different guppy, and so
wow.
there's a lot to be how do you call this? Explored.
Yeah.
I did once with George Fear. Before we did the fish guys. We did like 20 trips, and we did a guppy trip, and we'd see how far south we would get watching guppies.
Yeah.
And we went really way south and still found some guppies. So
really?
It was really interesting. We found places where they were totally clear. They had nothing on them. No dots. There was streams that they only had one dot. There's streams that only had an orange guppy. Yeah, exactly. That's the one from the coast. Yes, that's the coastal guppy.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the ones that, if you go there, you're going to see them in all the mountain streams.
Yeah.
And
very cool.
Yeah, very cool. So, we have to explore them, because if you have a place where there's genetically, they don't have one line, they're all crystal clear. Yeah. And then you got these places that have an orange line, then you could probably do something interesting in the future with them.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I just see those and I'm like, oh man, my mind's already going, because I got into the hobby breeding guppies as a kid, and then I got into high-end guppies in the 90s and selling them online through the mail and stuff. But I mean, back then I remember I had some that were going for $150 or so, for a pair. So and I don't even know what the market's like now in high-end guppies. It probably goes really insane. But just when you've got that eye for stuff you breed, you see some trait that's unique, and it's just really cool to see it out in the wild. Those traits that is isolated already for you. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So somebody also asked. And I want to also take the time real quick to thank anybody who's asking questions or super chatting. We'll have time to ask some questions specifically at the end of us chatting here in about a half hour. But in the meantime, I did see a couple questions that actually go pretty well with what we're already talking about. And one was, is there a project similar or a group similar to Project Piaba in Venezuela currently, in the sense of it's like a conservation? Yeah. So that's, that was going to be what I was going to say to people is watch Ivan, follow Ivan, and support the projects he's working on currently. And that is Project Piaba for Venezuela. But, fair enough question. Is there anybody else there even spearheading anything really?
In Venezuela, it's too difficult. No.
Yeah.
There's a couple of people that are trying to do something, but it's really difficult, and even more when people don't speak English, and it's really. But Project Piaba is a very big organization, and they deal with exporting. Venezuela has there's no export of tropical fish.
Yeah.
So what we do is we're trying to first see what there is. The problem is that we know a lot about the Amazon, but we don't know a lot about what we have here in the Orinoco. We're discovering new species of fish, and every time we go. So, we have to document what there is. Like I always say, you cannot preserve something that you don't know exists.
Yeah.
Brazil has another, in another level, they've had this for many years. This has been done for many years. There's a lot of exploration. Venezuela is a little bit less, so that's what we do.
So in Brazil, definitely, and I mean, same with like Cambodia or Bangladesh, the river is the highway. You know what I mean? The river is where the people are. And in Venezuela, is the Orinoco not so much that way? I mean, I know there's indigenous groups, but you said the roads are so common. No. Do you think that kind of makes it a little less developed and a little more uncharted still?
The thing is that Venezuela is the populated, the 90% of the population is in the coast.
Okay.
And the Orinoco is way down. Orinoco, I'm in the coast too, practically. And I have to drive. I wake up I start driving at 6 o'clock in the morning to get to, for example, to the Orinoco.
Yeah.
And I don't stop. I go 140 kilometers an hour, 140, 150.
Okay.
And without stopping, just to put gas, it takes me around 10 hours or so.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
So we're talking about 600 kilometers away
Yeah.
from the massive populations, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And and once you get down an hour or so from the coast, there's nobody there.
Sure.
So there are some cities, but it's not like in other places. For example, like in Peru, I guess, like in Iquitos.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a very good organization in the Amazon Research Center from Anthony Messerl.
Yes.
That's another thing that is working, but that's down towards the Amazon.
Is that in Peru itself? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So there, if you're looking for a nonprofit to help, that one is a very good one that you should help, because that encloses ornamental and everything. But the Orinocos, there's less people, but there's a lot of fishermen.
Okay.
That fish the big fish for consumption, for human consumption.
Sure. Yeah.
Like the big catfish, zungaros, and all those humongous catfish, and they catch too much. They catch too much, and that's something that probably should be regulated more. But it's very lonely down there. It's very, very solitary. It's not like you see in some other places where it's full of boats and ships and no.
Yeah. So I mean, is there a Wild West element? I mean, one of my questions was
totally yes.
I mean, yeah, because one of my questions was like, I know just from friends who've traveled through Colombia and Venezuela and Peru. I have a Peruvian friend. I mean, you've got Shining Path, you've got FARC, there's communist, there's fascist, there's anarchist, there's democratic. I mean, there's militia groups for every cause you could think of that have been in those regions over the last 40 years, And so I'm just curious if that has impacted your ability to function in that area, or if,
a lot. Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
So I mean, are there like road? Oh, I'm sorry. What was that?
Alex, you hit it when you said the Wild West. That's a great way of that's a great way to describe it.
Well, I mean, when you go to Africa, everybody tells you TIA, which is "This is Africa," and that's just like what you say when you have to pay off a border guard, or like you're at the place and they're like, you're facing 10 years in prison for your license plate being not, no tabs or whatever. And they're like, or you can pay a $40 US fine. It's just like, come on, guys.
Yes, so totally a Wild West. But here they call it south of the Orinoco. Anything that is south of the Orinoco is like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
So are there any cities down there? I mean, over a few thousand people. Are there any other big cities south of the Orinoco?
Well, remember that the Orinoco is really big. So you're talking about half Colombia, all of southern Venezuela. There's big towards the delta. There's the biggest cities like Tucupita, Maturin, Ciudad Bolivar, or Puerto Ordaz. Those are the big cities. But they're more towards, let's say, the lower Orinoco.
Okay.
And the upper Orinoco, there's practically no cities. There's Puerto Ayacucho, which probably has, 40,000 people. I'm not sure.
Wow. Okay.
But where I live, there's 1 million people.
Yeah.
1 million people live city, and we
isn't Caracas like 10 million or
or no,
more?
like 4 million. We're no, it's
Oh,
like 4
okay.
or 5 million.
I
But
thought the metro area was huge in Caracas
no,
now or something.
no. We're not that a big of population in Venezuela, but the South is pretty much empty. The South is it's the Wild West.
Interesting. So, I mean, do you have any crazy stories that you, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
that you would, do you have one you'd like to, is there anything that pops out in your mind that's, I mean, like, have you been held at gunpoint? Is that a frequent occurrence or,
Yes. Yes.
like, just to give people
Yes.
an idea of like
I tell
what
you,
you
listen,
go
what I
through
can,
for,
I'm going to tell you what I can tell you. I can tell you that
yeah,
we're not scared of seeing a jaguar. We're not scared of seeing, you know where I'm going. That
yes,
the electric eels or whatever it is. We're
yeah,
afraid of finding of when you find somebody walking towards you in the jungle. You're like you're afraid. It's like
right,
if you're looking at a lion or something, or
yeah, yeah.
you know,
So
it's
does
it's
the
human
illegal,
beings.
yeah, does the illegal gold mining and logging go on like it does in Brazil and Peru, or is that less popular in Venezuela?
It's this. We have treated our rivers as bad as anybody else.
Okay, all right.
But as I always say, nobody gets out clean out of this.
Yeah,
Nowhere.
yeah, no,
No.
no, definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have, I mean, the whole reason the EPA was pressured into starting in America is because the Cuyahoga River used to catch on fire every year in the 60s. I mean, like, that was one of the main events that was, yeah. So
Nobody comes
America
out clean.
has a long history of messing up our own ecosystems.
Yeah, in the Rhine River, they find a lot amount of Valium and stuff like that too. So
Well, yeah. Interestingly enough, now all throughout Europe, and they've started doing this in New York and LA also. They'll test the sewer water on Friday and Monday, and when they test it on or like Thursday and like Friday morning or Thursday night, and the levels of drugs are really low, they can actually trace how much, approximately, they're guessing based on seizures and other things, how much humans are consuming based on the nanoparticle. I mean, it's parts per million, but still that's kind of crazy that, like whether it's birth control or antidepressant pills or actual, street narcotics, we can test that. And you can see that the weekend it spikes because everybody's going out to the clubs and things,
Yeah, I know.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and I'm laughing at this, but I probably should be crying and probably crying at the same time. But it's that's how we are. That's us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, we're human. We're human.
we're human, exactly.
So I mean, the other thing is when I spoke with you last week or the week before, I can't remember if it was your sister or you who brought it up, but you brought up a story, and it was really moving to me about collection specimen jars and the cost of refurbishing them. Does this sound familiar to you, or was this Yelka? Because it might have been her then, but she mentioned that there are these shacks and buildings kind of out away from things sometimes where they'll have specimen jars of fish.
Oh, yeah.
From way back.
We've been trying to raise money for that too. And for example, there's a collection of fish made by one person, which I call the Amazon warrior. She's called Justa Fernandez, and she's an ichthyologist that for 25 years she collected most of the upper Orinoco River samples, like a lot of species, and she made a small museum, a small collection of ichthyology of fish, and it's in Puerto Ayacucho. And I visited it. She retired, and after I don't know 25 years of working in creating this.
Yeah.
And So she left, and there was nobody there to take over her. So they locked the place up, because there's
Yeah.
it was her, she was doing
It was
this.
her baby. Yeah. Yeah.
It was her baby. And so she retired. And once you don't work for the government, you sometimes are not allowed back in, or you can't be going back in because you're a liability. If you don't work there, you shouldn't be there. But I went to visit, and they let me in, and there was a lot of the samples that were going down in alcohol. Some of the you have to change if you don't buy like the super expensive museum quality,
stoppers or corks. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have just the Mayo one, with
Yeah.
glass and a metal thing, you have to replace those lids they corrode or whatever, and the alcohol evaporates. So imagine these things. There's a lot of them that are drying up, and she spent 25 years killing these things. You know how much effort this is of looking for these things and collecting them, and the love you have to go to all these remote areas where you're probably not even allowed, only if you speak the Pemon language, let's say.
Right. Yeah.
And so seeing these things dry up and get lost, is just heartbreaking. So we wanted to raise some money, but again, now gas is as expensive probably than here. So now driving to these places is really expensive. Going down to making a trip for me, which before was, okay, I need $5 for a month of gas. Now
Wow.
now is you need $1,200 for gas for this trip. It's I could get a trip to Europe cheaper in a plane.
Yeah.
So just moving and getting the drums and buying the alcohol and going there. Also, we're trying to see if we can move it from there closer,
Sure.
But all of this has to be done, and I can't do all this by myself. I have things to do in life that I like to do, that I just record what there is. Yes. But these things have to be done, and we need help.
Yeah.
If I have to pay somebody to do it or something, or I can't do everything.
Well, I want to help you if I can in that I think that there are plenty of viewers and community members that would love, especially because so I love Project Piaba and what they do, but the fact that they have a bureaucracy that runs it, and you've got people that are getting paid, who knows, 50 grand, 100 grand a year to be spokespeople in the US or whatever. I don't know how it's all run. I honestly don't, but
I don't either. I don't know how they run.
But there are organizations, let's just say in general. Maybe I shouldn't pick on Piaba, but that are kind of bloated, or just they're the big dogs. They have a whole chain of command and things. And then there's crowdsourcing where you're like, I just need $500 for alcohol and some corks. You know what I mean? Yeah. And a grad student who's willing to help out, or whatever, and lend their time for 100 hours in a few months or something, So I would just say that if you have something like a nonprofit where it was like micro projects almost, where you knew what you were giving to, I can almost assure you that my viewers, myself, people would really feel like they're doing something, because it's also like a specific project that you feel like you are accomplishing. This is checked off the list. We saved those specimens. You know what I mean?
Right here, the only bureaucracy we have is the Mikolji bureaucracy. It's I put my money. I've been putting my money on this for 15 years. I'm not making a profit for 15 years. So also Matherol and the Amazon Research Center, they put more money than what they get from their salaries, I guess, and stuff. You put it from your own pocket.
Sure. Yeah.
Until and then my wife gets mad at me, and
that's the story of my life as an artist.
Yeah, it's all of us who spend money on fish too.
Yeah. No, I that's why I have I've been so fascinated by your work, and also I didn't realize you were a fine artist until 8 years after I discovered your wild photography. I mean, granted, photography can be fine art too. It is, but
That's what
I
they
didn't
say.
realize you were doing painting or illustration,
Yeah.
different different mediums like that. I don't know how I missed it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how I missed that fact. But I've talked to other people and I've told them, hey, the guy who does the videos of Venezuela? Well, he does art too. Have you checked it out? No, I had no idea. So it's just weird what we miss sometimes. And people are the same way with me. Like, they don't, they hear that I have art galleries or books and things of my art, and they're, it's just it's just
your
so
art
different.
is really cool. Your art is super cool.
Well, thanks. But so it's just, but it's something that I was drawn to your story. The conservation, the art, the traveling and exploring, and then documenting just what we don't know yet, or the
science behind it, which I'm not an ichthyologist, I'm not a biologist, so this is all learned from dealing with all the scientists. They ask you for help and you help them, and then you learn.
So did you go to school for anything in particular then? Did you go to university for anything?
No, I have in history.
Okay, yeah.
It's in Venezuelan history. But okay. all that I know in
I'm a history major too, so.
Okay. But so all that I know about fish, I used to breed fish when I had my aquariums and stuff, but all that I know scientifically was it was given to me by the ichthyologists who helped me. Because I wanted to, when I was the first time I went underwater with a camera.
Yeah.
It was in the Morichal Largo River, and I made the Morichal Largo DVD. Morichal Largo documentary DVD, I called it, or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And I bought this little Sony camera with the Sony case that you could put in a pool.
Yeah.
And it had a DVD, a 5-centimeter DVD that ran, and I went to the Morichal Largo River and I was videoing the apistogrammas and all this fish.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'm going to make this documentary and I'm going to live the rest of my life doing this. But the sales were not enough to cover the camera. Not even. But you can watch it on YouTube and see how rudimentary it was, that was in 2005. Wow. It was one of and YouTube, it was viral when viral was like 2,000 hits,
Yeah, I know.
In the beginning. But we do our best with what we have.
Yeah.
And I try to help the scientists, which they sometimes are in a lab and they need specimens. So they help me by saying, listen, this is where this specimen was caught. This is the exact river. Go there. It was caught in the rainy season or the dry period or the rainy period. And it'll usually when you have those coordinates, you go there and they're there. So they were a lot of help, and I would bring samples for the museums in Caracas, and they even redescribed species with my fish, and they put me on the name. They put my name on the scientific papers, and that was so cool for me.
Yeah. So, I guess I'm curious. I have a 2-part question, and that is, so are there any species that you've gone out and found that people believed were extinct? Or, I mean, is it usually the fact that they don't even know for sure what's out there, so you're going to go and just let them know?
Exactly. Normally is let's see what's out there. But there is one species that was described, I think, in 2003, which is not that long ago, but it is. But it's not, not from the 1800s.
No, yeah.
And it's called Lithogenes Valencia, and it's from the Lake of Valencia area, and it's like a plico, and like a flat plico, and it was described as extinct when it was described. Okay. But we think we found the spot because where they could be. So we wanted to make a documentary on this, and we're probably going to do it when I get back to to Venezuela in a week or two. We're probably going to go there and see if we find it. And that's going to be a cool video because we're
That
going to
would
bring
be
back something.
so
Yeah,
cool.
that's going to be really cool.
And so, you know, the other thing that I had talked to your sister about, which was the notion of that there are these expeditions that occurred in, say, 1860 or 1890 or whenever by ichthyologists or just explorers charting whatever, you know. I would love to, if next time you have a project, if you have any interest, I mean, next time you're told, go out to this GPS coordinates because of this guy's report in 1910 or whatever, I'd love to do the research on who that guy was and that expedition, you know, to tell the story of the first time around, what you know, what all that the story is there, because there's so many fascinating stories about how the jungle or the river.
Humboldt.
Yeah, I mean,
Humboldt.
Yeah.
The equinoxial trips of Humboldt, the books.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
it's
the
just
whole Orinoco, where the tourist rapids where I am. You could see, we have an exhibition called
Yeah, I
A
saw
Tribute to
that.
Humboldt. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's all the species that he discovered and described, but taking a picture, not drawn, because he drew them, and with one point
right.
drew them too. But these
Yeah,
are the actual images of the orchids and everything that he discovered, but in practically the same spot.
that's so cool.
Yeah, of course. If you have anything, we could coordinate this, and it would be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I just like to give people credit, like you, who spent their whole life. You know what I mean? Like, if someone's passionate about something, it's just so much more captivating to me. It doesn't matter if I'm even that interested in it. This happens to be a subject that I'm obsessed with, but you know, it doesn't matter what it is. If you watch someone put their whole life's, you know, energy towards something for 20, 30, 40, 50 years or whatever, I just feel like those are stories worth telling, especially in our hobby or in the science, you know, whatever it may be. And sometimes people get overlooked, or sometimes they maybe had a falling out with the community when I've done research, you know. And so I'm just curious too, if there's anybody in that sense. I mean, do you have heroes that you've kind of come across?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know,
I even
so
have a tribute. I have a whole tribute artwork work. Like there's, if you go on my website, there's a, how do you call this? There's a catalog that I made of
cool.
the people that I drew. I made, what I did is that I got the people that inspired me to do this.
Okay.
And I drew a fish. It's called the Blue Fish Tribute. And I drew the fish. The drawings are all, they look similar because my art is very repetitive. Like a fish in a school of fish. They're all similar, but they're all another entity. Yes. These drawings are very similar, but they're all different because they're originals. They're not copies. They're all different. Sure. And then what I did is I named the fish. I put the name of the person that inspired me, but I made it like a scientific name. I Latinized it, but you know, in a funny way. Yeah. You know, so Oliver Lucanus I think it's Oliverus Lucanoides or something. Yes. You know, and so I named the fish after them. So there's like 12 people there. Of course, you have to me, a lot of superheroes are the ichthyologists that are doing the work behind the scene. For example, there's some very great ones. Carlos Lasso, Oscar Lasso, Donald Tafford. There's many. There's Nathan Lujan. Geez, the work that Nathan Lujan does with the plecos, that's amazing. You know, and so Heiko Blair. How long did Heiko go everywhere? That guy has been all over the planet. That guy is
crazy. I'm trying to talk to him, you know, to do some interviews, like a series to document his life a little bit. He is such an Indiana Jones kind of guy. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
But you know, I kind of get that vibe from your journeys too. Maybe a little less. I want to be kind here. Less boisterous, maybe. You know, because he's just a character. You know.
Yeah, well, but he has a lot of merit. He has done a
He,
lot.
yeah,
But
oh yeah, and charisma too. You know what
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean? So
But I usually can't go out with any of them. A lot of them, for example, Franz Vermeulen is a great one. Franz
yeah,
Vermeulen is the Killy person. You should
yeah,
interview him. He's super cool.
yeah,
And
yeah,
their work is so different than mine. For example, Blair's, his, they're totally different. We do the same sort of, but I
yeah.
can't go out with them because they do hundreds of miles in a trip, in a 15-day trip.
Wow.
For me, a 15-day trip is 100 feet in a river, and I
Right.
stay
Yeah.
in those 100 feet trying to video what the 10 minutes in the life of that epistogramma, what does he do? So
Yeah.
I stay in that place for 15 days, and they can't. They want to, they want to do the whole jungle in 15 days. So
Right.
their work is too different. So I usually can't go out with them.
That's really, really interesting. You know, that just the difference in styles. You know, I've been trying to get a hold of a copy of Discus Volume 1 from Heiko Blair for years. That book is like a few $1,000s if you can
Wow,
find it.
really?
Yeah. I
Wow.
mean, I found beat up copies of it for like $650 was the cheapest I've seen it. And that was for a beat up copy that, yeah.
I don't want to jinx him or anything, but if he dies, they're gonna be worth a lot more.
I
Like
know.
with all artists, don't kill me if you have my book.
Yeah, you better get the book, guys, and then yeah.
If you have my book, don't kill me.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I also, the last thing I wanted to, you know, I know, like honestly, I'd love talking to you forever, but time is limited, and I wanted to
Oh
touch.
man, it's been an hour. We've been talking
It's
for an hour.
already been almost an hour. If you're cool with talking more, I'd love to chat a little bit more.
Yeah, we could talk a little bit more. I'll speed it up. I won't tell you so many stories.
No, it's great. No, thank you so much for it. I mean, because that's why I wanted to chat with you. I mean, that's what we're all here and excited to learn. I mean, it's the little things, you know, when you just talk about what you love and what's interesting and new, all these stories that seem disjointed, eventually in your life, the pieces come back together in just beautiful ways. Yeah. And
yes, they do.
And so I just love talking to people about whatever it is they're passionate about, and you know, trying to find out in my head then like where that fits in with the bigger picture. You know what I mean? But I was gonna say, like you were mentioning, sitting for 15 days in one spot and doing your thing. So the thing that I wanted to mention, if people don't know about you. Yet another thing that you do, I mean, you're very creative and a very diligent person in all the things you do, it seems like, but you do the wild aquariums, which are set up on location, essentially biotope aquariums. Is that, I mean, you can explain it better than I can, I'm sure. So,
well, what we wanted to do was a movement. Right? We wanted to do a movement where people would go out to their closest body of water with their kids or with whatever and show what there was there. And that we thought it was a great way to create empathy, to create empathy to the people that lived in a place. For example, like you were saying, in Venezuela, people like other fish that are not from there. But if people went out to their closest river and did a wild aquarium, then they'd probably, find some empathy, and that's a good way to preserve all these rivers in the future. So I wanted everybody to find the closest thing to their house and create a wild aquarium and bring all these people from the aquarium hobby beyond the aquarium. There's so much stuff beyond, something, bring it out, Yeah. So we wanted to do, that was what was behind it. It was more like making the aquarium like an ecological tool, like showing tool where people could learn what there was, because it's sometimes really hard for people to put cameras underwater and video.
Sure.
So it's more like bring it out and do something in the wild, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I've started. Because I knew that I was going to chat with you on the show, and be speaking with you and everything. And then after getting the book, I've been out every day since we spoke, making a wild aquarium, not a nature aquarium. Nature aquarium is the term that some people use, like Takashi Amano, for the aquascapes and the rimless tanks, like the one behind me.
Yeah.
But I've been catching. I mean, I've been working on catching native fish off and on, but really, like, I've been obsessed this summer, and I've really had a good time. But I underappreciated the effort that goes into actually setting up an aquarium when I hike in somewhere. I'm carrying the aquarium and I'm like, oh man, I got fingerprints all over it. And then I'm like, I don't have anything that's not sweaty or dirty to clean the glass with. And then you put the aquarium down and nothing's level. And so the sheer act of just getting it together for a nice presentation has a lot behind it. And it's valuable for an aquarist or an aquascaper. If you've done indoor aquascaping, it's not that it's sterile, but it's just more surgical or something, more prepared.
Alex, the thing is that it's art too.
Yeah.
If you created that aquarium inside a museum, it would be performance art.
Sure. Yeah.
It's totally a creation. It's totally artistic.
Yeah.
It is like you tell you, it's hard work. It is.
Yeah. I mean, and the other thing is, for me, my wife will call me and she'll say, it's 10 p.m. Where are you? Because I left at 7 a.m. You know what I mean?
Hate you.
And look, I'm not even going far. I'm not going out into the Orinoco. I'm going 7 miles away from the house and up maybe a half mile or a mile hike, But I've been having
you appreciate your fish, don't you?
Yeah.
Listen, when I come here, when I see all those pumpkin seeds underwater, I'm like, wow, this has nothing to envy a discus.
Yeah.
And you know the bowfin, the calva.
They're just mesmerizing.
That's worse than a pike cichlid. That's like an aymara, like a Hoplius, like a wolffish.
Yeah, I know. It almost reminds me of, like, I don't know, a little arapaima or something too. You guys got
like the primitive fish up here too, like the gars and all this, and the Amiacalva is pretty primitive too.
Yeah, and then the what's the other one with the crazy nose? The paddlefish. There's paddlefish and things around the world. There's some in Australia too, but
those sunfish are awesome.
Oh yeah. The people don't give those enough credit. I look at those and I think, why aren't we breeding these like discus?
Yes.
Like, what?
Why not?
I don't get it.
Get it.
Especially because that fish, I mean, and I've heard all sorts of excuses of, it's because they need cold water in the winter and blah, blah, blah. No, they don't. They're really like bulletproof fish. Like, they show up when you don't want them, honestly. Like, they're not native to where I'm at, but they've just diffused with, birds and, it's not that even people have put them here. They've just spread from lake to lake to lake very quickly,
Listen, I went to a pond in Plymouth, Massachusetts, like 3 weeks ago, and I was fishing, and the person that was with me that caught one that it was like a survivor from war. It was like a pirate. It didn't have one eye. It had, the guy had been fished like 20 times, and he's still alive. So it has to be pretty hardy.
Yeah. Well, I just know that, I've seen them I have a video from 3 years ago. I went to Canada and there was a hot spring and I brought my thermometer, like my digital thermometer laser, thing. And, it was like 112 degrees Fahrenheit. So what is that?
36. Yeah.
36. Yeah.
Celsius. Must have been a puddle or something, right? A puddle or
no, it was a hot spring.
Oh, yeah.
like
Okay.
geothermal.
Yeah. Like the
And it
guppies
was,
we're talking about.
yeah, and it was attached to a lake, but it was winter, and I was watching the pumpkin seed fish spawn in the middle of winter because the water was lukewarm in this pond about 100 yards down from where the water was coming out. But they were in like 90-degree water. That's where they chose to hang out, which is supposedly way too hot for them. So who knows? You know, I think that sometimes we don't quite understand, you know, what they need. But
It's an awesome fish.
It's a cool fish. Yeah, exactly.
One of my favorites.
Sticklebacks are one of my little favorite fish because they're pretty understated, but they can be bright yellow or red or blue or green, and they can have tiger stripes or spots, or they can be plain silver and clear. But everything about them, you can read them like a book, and you can read if they have zebra stripes, you know that they're living in the reeds. If they have dots, you know they live on pebbles, like in gravel. And if they've got just a half bright silver belly and a dark top, then you know that they're in open water, you know? So they're just really fascinating, the way you can read them. And
you nailed it. You nailed it again.
It's just that, it's stuff like that, though, that I want people to go out and learn, you know? When you make that connection and you realize, like, that's why those fish in this same pond look so different, is because those ones are living in the weeds and those ones live in the middle, and they've evolved the ability to change their, you know, active camouflage of some sort. Or
yeah, exactly.
You know,
yeah, exactly. When you do a biotope aquarium and you got the fish with stripes like this, and then you put the branches like that, and you they have stripes like this because the plants or whatever, everything is straight.
Yeah.
And you get it. Now you got it. Because they live in the reeds, they have the vertical stripes.
Yeah. And so, you know, it's stuff like that then when I see your photos and your book, I'm just like, oh, it makes so much sense now. You know, when I see the habitat of this fish and you see the patterns that we've brought out domesticating, or whatever you want to call it, line breeding these fish in captivity, and you see how we've exaggerated some of these features, but it makes sense where they came from, you know, or why they have them and things like that.
But I always have something. We're talking too much, probably. But you know, if you everything is relative, okay? Because let's say your wife is pregnant and has to give birth. You're not going to tell her, hey, let's go to the woods because we came from the woods. There's a cave down there, you know, let's go give birth in the cave and that's better.
Yeah.
You know, so there's some things that are relative, but you have to. I also want to get the orange line guppy and find a albino big guppy and try to breed them to get those big guppies with one line. You know, we all have this, you know, but you have to know you can't put it back in the wild. You know, there's some things that we have to, as aquarium people, we have some of that, you know, wanting to breed, wanting to explore type of thing. We all have it. And we all make mistakes too.
And I think that, you know, part of it is when you keep aquariums in your house, I do think there is an element of playing God. You know what I mean? Or playing,
totally.
You know, like, I'm the one in charge. I made the conditions so that fish is happy. And to me, like, the biotope is the ultimate fulfillment of that ego trip in a really weird way. That's like, it's kind of this, like, I'm playing God, but at the same time, it's not about, like, I'm the greatest, look at me or anything. Because it's a very introverted hobby, you know, for the most part.
Totally.
So it's just kind of this oxymoron, or this, you know, whatever you'd call, you know, it's just kind of odd the way that works, but I really love the biotope tanks. And so I guess another question I had for you is, what do you have coming up that people should keep an eye out for, like, to kind of I guess probably wrap up what we're talking about here, and then we'll take it to see if we have a couple questions from people. But if you could just, you know, shamelessly self-promote, that would be great.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, what we have out right now is the book.
Uh-huh.
If you go to our website, there's a couple of things you could buy. The prints. Oh, yeah, there's the book. Yeah. The green book. That thing sticks out everywhere.
Oh yeah,
You know,
and it's
that
hefty. I
green
mean,
color.
home
Yeah.
defense also.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would
It's a
never do
very thick
that.
book. It's a very thick book. Yeah, treat it well. It'll probably be worth some money.
Yeah.
But it's the book is that's the book about the fish. We're working on a series of books which are a little like the Equinoxial Trips of Humboldt.
Okay.
They're books of the green book you just showed, The Fish from the Orinoco in the Wild. It has 7 areas of
Yes.
study. We want to make a smaller book on each.
Oh
Because
wow. Okay.
each area has their own orchids that live next to the river. The insects, the flowers, the plants, the underwater plants are different. So we want to make like a biotope book. Remember,
Yeah.
this is the fish from the Orinoco. We're probably going to make a biotope book of each section that is in the book,
Wow.
including the aquatic plants, the plants that are lacustrine or palustrine. I'm not really sure how to say it. The ones that live in the swampish areas.
Yeah.
There's a lot of orchids that live in that areas too. All the droseras, the carnivorous plants that live around.
Yeah.
Because people don't know that neon tetras live between the carnivorous plants.
No,
You know, they swim between the roots and the stuff. So we have to show that too. So that's coming up we're working on it.
That's
but right now it's a book. And if you really want to go fancy, there's a box called Amazon Faces that is really cool. And it has 4 prints of 4 fish. And it comes already matted. You just have to buy a 14 by 11 frame and just put it in.
Okay.
And it's the highest grade paper and everything print that you can get. And that is a numbered series. And that's like the maximum thing that we have for sale right now.
Okay.
For the art thing, you have to write for me or look at the catalogs and you write to me. But the things that are in the shop is that. Okay.
Well, that's great to know. And so I've linked that info in the description below.
I just got an Amazon face.
Ah, there you go.
Wait up. This is Mikolji Amazon Faces. And it has the Mikolji logo. And if you open it, it has the certificate. Wait up.
Nice.
Of authenticity. And it has the prints.
Very nice. Oh wow!
And they're all signed. There's 4 of them. You can see them over there. It's the highest thing, museum grade, whatever. It's the best thing we have. Like the best thing we have to offer right now on the website for sale on the store. Sure. You know.
Well, that's great. And so people can also follow you through a newsletter, right? That from time to time comes out.
Yeah, it comes out. I try to be better. We won't spam you like other people that spam you every 5 days. No, we'll spam you once in every 2 months. When we have a lot of announcements, we try to make it as fun as possible. Yeah. To show what we do. We want to tell the people what we're doing. Yeah. We're assessing fish with the IUCN, fish that are not thought to be threatened, and we're assessing them so lawmakers can make laws to protect them. So we do a lot of work that people don't know. Like
that's fascinating stuff.
So that's what we do in the newsletter. We try to show people, tell them what we're doing.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, so that's great. I mean, thank you for telling us what you're up to.
This is going to go in the newsletter.
All right. The other thing I was going to say is we have some questions, and I have some people in our stream that are quite well versed in certain fish, and so they have some questions for you if you don't mind.
Let's see if I can answer.
All right, let's see here. So one is Ivan, how common is the catfish? What is it? Acis? Man, I'm having a hard time with the pronunciation. Asteridium dichromium. Yes.
Asteridium dichromium.
That first word, I was like,
what is Asteridium dichromium? What is the question?
How common is that catfish in nature?
It's not very common.
Okay.
They live in specific places. That's the problem. They're not everywhere. You have to look for them in specific places, and it's normally what I call the green tunnels, which are where there's usually a lot of palm trees, which are aquatic, like Maurita flexuosa, the Morichal palm tree.
Sure.
And their roots don't let the sides erode of the rivers.
Yeah.
So the streams, so they become very deep and narrow.
Yeah.
And there's this plant that lives there. Geez, I don't remember the name exactly. But
how dare you not memorize every creature?
They're always swaying in the water, and it looks like a tunnel.
Oh wow!
And everything is green there. It's all the green plants, and that's it. Wow. They're all swaying and that's where they live. And they live with Ammocriptocharex elegans, which is also green. Yeah. So everything in there is green. The plants are green. The Acistridium dichromen is green. It's like a Farlowella, but it's green. And it has like a disc in the front of his nose, and it's got some prickles. That's why it has like a little disc. So
I don't know how you tell the Farlowellas apart.
Well, these things are very small. They don't grow big, and the tip is rounded, and they always get stuck to the nets.
Oh, okay.
But they're usually in very strong current of water. You can't believe it's like putting a power head in front of it, you know.
Oh wow!
And that's where they live, 24 hours a day.
Wow!
And they're so aerodynamical, you know. They're perfect. You know,
that's like a very unique habitat. I mean,
very unique. Yeah.
Very specialized for that.
Very specialized.
So I mean, it's things like that are so informational if someone's trying to breed something, honestly. You know, if you know, hey, this thing only lives under logs of this kind of wood, you know.
No sun whatsoever.
Wow. Yeah. So I mean, is the Venezuelan jungle very similar to the Amazon jungle in that like 96% of light doesn't come through?
I've never been to Brazil. I've been to a little border once, but I haven't gone to the Amazon.
Okay.
So I would lie if I tell you if it's different or not. But here there's places that you're in the middle of the jungle and the trees are high and it's really cold in the bottom because no sun goes in.
Yeah.
And when it does, when there's wind and the canopy moves, there's rays of light that trickle down and the water's going so fast. And that's when it breaks and it creates those spectrums that are in the book.
Yeah.
So you imagine how hard it is.
Oh man.
To take a picture of a fish that is like this, going in a leaf like this, freezing, you know, and waiting until the canopy and it breaks and the rainbow passes on top of it with like a prism.
Oh man.
It's days. It's 15 days to take that picture.
Oh,
you know. So in one spot, you know, just sitting there and waiting, and I use 12 kilos of lead. How's that? 25 pounds of lead, so the water doesn't take you.
Yeah.
You know. So
I mean,
there's it's a lot of. The person that is going to try to make a book better than that one is going to have a rough time.
I would say it's probably not doable. Here, this picture. I'm assuming this is something similar to what you're talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. That is so hard. That fish is like this, like an inch and a half, and that leaf is going like this. And you're you know, 8 hours like this. You know, 3,000 pictures and 5 come out well. You know, out of the 3,000, 5 are worthy of a book.
Thank goodness for a digital, man.
Exactly.
You know, if it was film, we'd have to be billionaires.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
it wouldn't be done. It wouldn't be done.
All right, let's see here. Do you have footage of social hunting behavior of Hopliorythrinus unit? Yes.
Well, it's in the book. I think I think it's the most intelligent fish in the planet.
Yeah.
that thing is like the whales that breach and whatever, or that they all like do the bubbles or whatever. That there's some
Yeah, where they make
there's
the
a
blind.
technique or whatever. These
Yeah.
things have a technique, but they take turns even.
Wow.
They even take turns. There's you can see them. For example, there's a group of 100, and they're all still in one part of the river and they don't move. And then a little group of them, like a line, like if you were getting on the bus, and the line goes, and it goes, I don't know, 100 feet, and all of a sudden it turns into a ball. They all turn into a ball. So this ball of 50 of them start shooting out and grabbing the fish. After they're all fed, the ball goes out into a line again, and they head back where the other 500 are, and another line goes.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
That's so cool.
That's who, where?
Well, and
fish.
Who would witness it usually? I mean, to be honest. So.
And when George Fear and I were looking at this, we're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
We're amazed at it, how they take turns and go to the fishing ground and then come back. It's amazing.
I think we've really done a disservice to the intelligence of fish, and we know now. We really know.
You need 500 of them and a big pond to see that. Probably you can't have an aquarium with one because you won't ever see it.
Yeah, they're finding with marmorids in Africa now too. That they communicate with electric signals, and that there's like 40 words probably that some of them are like go left, go right, charge, get out of here, like
our fish are yelling in the aquarium. There's nobody to hear.
I know, exactly. Well, there was another YouTuber who made a video about that happening with the fish. There's a recent study that came out just a few months ago on the marmorids and how they talk, and how they actually pause to let other ones talk. So there's a long pause if it's an important thing, and then they'll repeat it also. Like it was just incredible. Like it was actual. They had linguistics look at it, not knowing that it was fish, and they told them that there was this language that they wanted them to check out, and they had translated it into something, and the linguists were like, "So is this a primate or what? Is this a bird? What kind of, where's this coming from? Or computer program?" They're like, "It's a fish," So who knows what other signals, pheromones, and visual cues. Who figured out that bees talk to each other by dancing? They can give directions all the way, a quarter mile away to a high, or to a source of sugar or pollen or whatever. And who sat there to decode that? There's so many wonders out there that we need people like you, and we need to inspire new people to get passionate about their area too. Like, that's the thing is, like you say, it's great if everybody loves African cichlids, but we've got a lot of people focusing on African cichlids. Like maybe we should have someone focusing on European eels. I don't know, something that it gets overlooked because people think it's already been looked at,
Of course.
Totally. So let's see here. Do we have any more questions that I missed that you can just ask them again?
How many people are on?
We've got about 105 people in here right now.
No way! There's so many people.
Yeah, and we've had 400 people come through this hour. 462 people have come through. So some people have to go to work.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here.
And then hopefully, some people come back and watch later. I have some friends and a lot of people are working or, they're in the UK, whatever. So, yeah. But a lot of people are just thanking you and also saying your work is so important. You're such an inspiration. And a lot of people are saying how much they would just die to go on an expedition with you, have you ever thought about taking people out? Like for...
Listen, I have
a fee.
I have, but the thing is that, well, I'd have to do it for a fee, right? But
yeah, and you're not going to get anything done.
but the people I have taken,
Yeah.
the first day they're okay at the river because it's 100 feet in the river.
Yeah.
And the second day they start picking up trash. The third day they start burning sticks and baking a bonfire, and they're going insane, and they're swatting mosquitoes because they're just in that spot of the river, from 5 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. They go insane. So you have to go by yourself.
Turns into Lord of the Flies pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I'm in the green tunnel,
Yeah.
for a week there,
I am somebody who can sympathize with that though, because when I used to, especially when I used to paint a lot more before I got hit by lightning and it messed up my coordination. But I used to.
I tell you, you have the best story of them all. You're the master.
Well, I hate just saying it in passing because it sounds so like, oh well, I got hit by lightning.
Oh, geez.
But it's just
you have to say it. If I were me, I'd be saying it for 5 seconds.
It's like, well, what a weird thing to happen. And when I tell people like, oh, I had this thing happen that was traumatic and it messed up my hand-eye coordination, they're always like, well, what was it? And then you tell them and they're like, oh, so it really messed it up, rather than just kind of like, oh, I hit my head or something, or whatever. I broke my hand. But in any case, yeah, it really messed things up. But I mean, I used to paint and I would start at like, 7 at night when the sun is going down or something, and then paint all the way until the morning and have my roommates in college come down and they would just be like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't have the eye right yet. Like I've like, cleaned it off and redone the glare in the eyeball for like the last 4 hours, trying to get it just right. So I definitely have this element of I don't know if it's it's not necessarily perfectionist.
We're all a little bit demented. We're all a little bit demented.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
All right, guys. Do we have any other? Okay, here we go. Thanks for.
I see a familiar name. Felix Ivanovich.
Oh yeah.
He's a nice person from Venezuela. He's living in Spain.
And right on.
He helped us a lot. He helped us translating some things from English to Spanish and stuff. There he is. He's in the chat. Felix Ivanovich.
Very cool.
He lived near the Moricha Largo River. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So, yeah, he helped us a lot.
That's great that you've got some friends stopping by. Hello, welcome.
Hello, Felix.
Let's see here. There's another question about so many people thanking you. So it's great. You should go back and read the chat, once it
Look, there's one. Is Ivan doing any gallery exhibitions in the US? Yes. We have one right now in Coral Gables. It's a solo show. It's mine, and it's from the book Fishes of the Orinoco in the Wild. It's 27 of the pictures that are in the book, and they're big prints, aluminum prints, and it's closing. We just put it on Facebook. It's closing Friday. So this Friday is the last time to see it, the last chance. I'll be there, and if somebody's in Southern Florida and wants to come, they better go. Great.
Yeah, that's cool. Is that going to be also part of that's the Humboldt tribute too, or is that separate?
No, that's separate. This is the pictures of the book. There's 25 large. We printed them out in aluminum, really nice. And they're all exhibited in the gallery. And from there, they're gonna go to. They're gonna be exhibited in hopefully, we're going to the Colombian Embassy in Washington. And from there, it's going to be a exhibition that is going to travel. It's going to be a traveling exhibition.
Very cool.
But it's going to be in Coral Gables. It's all on our social media. If you go into Mikolji, @Mikolji on Facebook or Instagram, you're going to see that's one of the first posts on top.
Gotcha. Very cool. Thanks. Hold on. Let's see. We got another question here. I was wondering if there were any fish that stood out in the Orinoco, especially suitable for aquariums. that live in a tiny puddle, or that, you know, like
the killifish.
The killifish, yeah.
All the killifish live in tiny puddles. But yeah, you know what lives in tiny puddles too? Neon tetras.
Really?
Similes. Yeah, they get really hot too. They get almost to 40 degrees Celsius. They get really hot too. But
and then they become lunch because they're cooked.
Yeah, once they dry out and they die, you know.
So
a lot of fish just die out.
Yeah, you know, that was part of the really cool thing that Project Piaba like kind of enlightened a lot of people in the hobby with, was the fact that the Cardinal Tetras, for instance, everyone was like, "Oh, you're gonna outfish them, you're gonna go extinct," and then they realized actually like 80% of them dry out every year because the river spills its banks, and then there's puddles left everywhere, you know. And they don't all make it back into the river, you know. A lot of them just die, and that's why they have 200 eggs or whatever.
That happens.
So I was just, you know, is that pretty common in Venezuela too? Do you see like a giant die off as the dry season approaches?
Yes, and that's what the crocs eat, and the turtles then feed, and then the foxes and the vultures, and you know, it's a whole ecosystem that thrives on these fish dying. It's, you know, it's not that they die and oh my God, they died. No, they're feeding also a lot of, you know, it's part of the ecosystem to die there. Yeah, and feed other species that are, you know, wild there too.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean,
you know, if you take all those fish and export them, then, you know, the croc and the fox and the, you know, whatever it is, they're gonna be really mad at you.
Yeah, well, and then I mean, and then from there it's all a big circle. So then
it's all a big circle.
At some point, you end up then getting back to the microbes and the algae and the, you know, protists and everything. So we have several people saying, Ivan, will you come back on here and tell us stories again?
Sure, of course. Yeah, but you can't. You know, we can be here for hours.
Oh yeah, I know.
We just talking about, for example, the bryozoans and the freshwater sponges you have up here in the U.S.
Oh,
they're all green and electrical like the ones down there. Freshwater sponges and mussels and clams. You could make this so cool.
Yeah, I mean, there are. I just well, I guess you're probably not in the Native American fish.
I am.
Are you in the Facebook group?
I'm also in one from South Florida. Also.
Oh, okay.
Wild fish from South Florida.
Lawrence Kent is pretty active on there, and he travels all over the world. But he lives here in Seattle, and him and I go out collecting when he's here. And we got a bryozoan that was like, I mean,
man, that's
ginormous. And
have you ever heard of someone that has had it in an aquarium? Is that even possible?
I have, yeah. I brought.
Do you feed it with coral? What do you feed him? Coral food?
No, just really green water in a pond type tank. That's the only way I've ever been able to keep them alive for even a few weeks.
I've seen them in clear water, crystal clear water, and
I know they've got to be eating like little
floating
plankton or something.
Stuff. It just looks like soft coral. It looks like all that soft coral, like from the ocean.
Yeah, and the ones that we find in the Northwest a lot, they look like jelly. They look like
well, the magnificent bryozoans. They have all these tentacles, right, at the end.
Yeah, and they have. There's one that looks like a bullfrog egg nest or something. It's translucent and it makes light shine through it like a prism.
Oh no!
Yeah, man. I uploaded a picture of it, and Lawrence and I are holding it. Yeah, I will.
Send me a link of that.
So, and then cool. Also years ago on my channel, I brought water in from a local river to start an aquarium, just to see like what would happen if I used not municipal water to start an aquarium. And I got freshwater sponges growing in the back of my aquarium about a year after I started it, which was pretty cool. So I did a couple videos on that, but it was very hard to pinpoint what they needed or were eating, and hard to find information on that. So I just tried to make it as much of a biotope as possible. So I have been able to keep the sponges alive, freshwater sponges, for like 6 months. That's the longest I've kept them alive.
That's a long time.
And grown them about yay big on the glass. Yeah. So I've got pictures and video of that, but yeah.
Send me links. Put links in the description.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, we have a lot of those. If you ever come to visit our state, the really crazy environment, it's almost like the lost world, is our alpine lakes and meadows, because it's like covered in snow for half the year, and then it just comes to life with wildflowers in the spring. And there's volcanoes. It's by Mount St. Helens in particular is where I'm thinking of. But there's these meadows with these streams they're narrow. They're only a meter across, but they're 3 meters deep, because the earth is made out of ash from a bunch of volcanic eruptions. And because
of that, the biotope.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's very, very unique. And so like Washington State, we have a desert that's 40 degrees Celsius in the middle of summer, 122 Fahrenheit it can get to. And then we have mountains that are 15,000 feet, or 5,000 meters. And we've got salt water at, so our state, we have everything from a temperate rainforest to a hot desert to, tundra up in the mountains. So I think you could come here and cover some ground, but I know you like to take your time. But there are a lot of biotopes, and that's for people watching. I mean, America in general has a lot of biotopes that are not explored well enough, by
you guys are a whole continent here.
Yeah. So
it's huge.
Exactly.
It's amazing the things you got here, and everywhere you go. Imagine going to Panama or
oh, I know.
Yeah. It's everywhere. You just have to look.
I love the video you made in maybe 2012 or so, where it's the area in the Guianan Shield called the Lost World, right? And it isn't that what it's titled as, or
George and I were freezing all the time.
Okay, I mean, because it just looks like there's nothing there, and then you get to a watering hole, and there's like every animal you could ever imagine is there. It's just like, I mean, there's like jaguars and alligator, caiman, and all these things out in the middle of this like moonscape.
They have the punk plecos. The punk plecos.
Yeah, so with the. Do they all just come, down that one river chain, or does that flood half the year, or
that area never floods. That area that's like the birthplace of. It's like a nursery. Everywhere you go, it's little streams, little what is that word again? Springs. Yeah. There's little springs everywhere, and it's just like the killifish are out there. There's places like that everywhere. Yeah. Imagine what Heiko Blair saw in the middle of Africa or in the Congo, I don't know where. Yeah. And it's just, there's amazing places everywhere.
Yes, definitely. So I think we'll probably wrap it up here, just in the interest of I could talk to you forever, and I think most people watching are having a good time, but we got to call it a day some point. But thank you so very much for coming on and chatting, and thank you for this masterpiece. Seriously, I cherish this. I was like, I better keep this pristine, and I was like, you know what, I'll buy another one if I have to, because I'm gonna read it like 5 times. You know what I mean? It's just too cool. It's full of so much. It's full of so much information, and I just hope if people pick it up, which I hope they do, there's a link right below in where you can get it for a great price, and free shipping and a free download of the pages.
You got a coupon too, right?
Yeah, 20% off.
What is the coupon?
Yeah, secret 20, all in caps, no spaces. Okay. The word secret 20, and it's 20% off. Yeah, and it's 20% off and free shipping on top of that. So And you get to look at the 50 pages while you're waiting. So, I mean, while you wait for the thing to arrive. But
you have to buy 2 because you have to give one as a gift.
You do. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, the other thing about that book, though, that I really hope people get is how much information you're conveying in a still picture. You know, whether that is that the fish has vertical stripes or horizontal stripes or whatever, because of the background I'm showing in this picture, or it eats this unique thing, or it lives in that green tunnel, or the light, for, you know, whatever it may be. And you explain some of that in the book, but there's so many other clues that you leave for us for our own imagination, or our own deductive reasoning to kind of sort out, you know.
The thing is, there's something hidden there that I haven't, you know, it's all linked. Because there's a couple of areas, and it's all linked together. If you read it sufficiently, you understand what it means, how it's all linked together.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
It is really cool. Yeah, I'm very impressed. It's my favorite book. Crystal Castleman's Guide to Plants is just an ID book, but that's my other favorite book. But you guys have my 2 favorite books in the hobby, so I just want you to know that. But thank you so much for your time, guys. Thank you for joining us. Please check out Ivan's work on his platforms. And, you know, at some point in the future, we'll have to check in with him again. And, you know, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy guy and you got a lot going on. But if you ever have any projects that, you know, you want to promote in that, you know, you need funding for an expedition, or you know, for restoration.
Right now we're working a lot with the La Salle Foundation in Venezuela, which is they made me an associated investigator.
Okay.
They called me up and they say, listen, you got let's to give it something institutional too. They wanted to I became part of them. So I could have a place where to put the stuff in a safe way, for example, the samples and everything.
Oh, okay.
So that's a good way too, if you want to promote us through La Salle Foundation. I'm not, if you want to help, you email me and I'll find a way. But
okay.
100% is going to go to do something cool.
Right.
You know, I don't keep it because I put it out of my pocket.
Yeah, and I mean, after talking to you extensively and your sister,
I spend more than whatever goes ever is going to be able to come back. Through 15 years, I've spent a lot of money that is never gonna. It's never gonna get repaid to me.
Well, as long as you love life while you're doing it, because you only get one life, you know. So, and you're making the world a better place. So
you nailed it again.
Who wants to be stuck indoors all the time or whatever? I mean, some people, but not me. So, you know, thank you so much for coming. And we're going to call it a night here, guys. Thank you for watching. Be sure to check out the links in the description, everyone. Hit that like button on the way out, because then it promotes the video so that more people can find it. And it's summer, so it's kind of the dead of YouTube time and the dead of aquarium season. So if you guys want to share this, if you find that, you know, you like today's talk, please feel free to share it with your friends, or, you know, a Facebook group or whatnot. But by all means, you know, hit the like button if you did like it, and subscribe to Ivan also. You know, he's got a lot of great videos that I've been watching for years on his own channel too. So be sure to check out.
Share it.
Share it. Yeah. Sharing is caring, guys. Look how much he's shared with us today. So, all right, guys, take care, and we'll talk to you next time. I'll be back on this show on Tuesday. I will be, Friday night at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. I'll be back, and we'll be talking about something interesting I have in mind. So keep posted, guys, and thank you so much for joining us. Have a good night. I'll let you have the last word, Ivan.
Oh, geez. Go out and explore whatever is near you. Make it yours. Make all those rivers yours. Know what is in there and teach everybody what is in there. It's the only way to create empathy and preserve in time, right?
Yeah.
And share the video. Right?
Thank you.